We're going to talk about converting fractions to decimals. Now, there are two ways to do this. One is with a calculator, one is without. The first thing I'm going to show you is how to read a fraction. If you have the fraction 7 over 10, a lot of kids, when they're trying to put it in the calculator or do whatever they're trying to do, they get confused on how to read it wrong and they can't keep up a consistent way. So the first thing we're going to look at is, what does this fraction bar mean? This fraction bar here is actually very similar to another sign that I'm sure you've seen before. If you look at this division sign and this fraction bar, they are basically the same thing. You can even imagine that this division sign is a fraction with those two dots representing any numbers you could put in the numerator and the denominator. Now, what this means is that the fraction bar means the exact same thing as division. So when you read this problem, just like you read a book, you're going to read this starting at the top and working your way down, because you start at the top of the page and you work your way down. This reads 7 divided by 10. So if we were to put it in the calculator, we would put it in as 7 divided by 10, or 0.7. Now, that's the way to solve this problem without doing a lot of work. As you can tell, I didn't show the work. Some people might argue you should be able to do it in your head. I argue that you should be able to show the work for it. That's using the calculator. Now, if you want to remember which number goes inside the division box, that gets you to another situation. So let's use the fraction 2/5. Now, a lot of times my kids will get confused, well, which number goes inside the division box, which doesn't. I know that when I was in grade school, I had trouble just remembering which way it went. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the letter L. A simple letter is going to really help us in this situation. And what that letter L is going to do is we're going to create the letter L using this fraction bar. There's really only one way to create the letter L using the fraction bar, and it's right there. Everybody sees the letter L, it's right there. Now what you're going to do is you're going to flip this board, and you can't always do this, but once you see it once, you'll generally get the hang of it, and you see basically a division box right there. So we're going to rewrite this problem, and what number goes on the inside is the same one that looks like it's on the inside here. So we're going to put the 2, and then we're going to take that 5. The 5 is on the outside, 5 goes on the outside. Now, this is where you start doing the actual division work. 5 goes into 2 how many times? Well, it really doesn't. So we're going to put a little decimal there, and because there's a decimal down there, we're going to also put a decimal up here. Now, we have to add a little invisible 0 here. Doesn't change the number at all, just makes it look a little bit different. 5 goes into 20, well, we can do that. 5 goes into 20 4 times, 5 times 4, 20. We're left with nothing, so 2/5 is the same as 0.4. Now, that was a pretty easy one. Let's do one more just to make sure we have that example in there. Let's say we're going to have the fraction 4 over 7. We're going to make that L again. You still need to turn your head a little bit to see the division box, so we're going to put 4 on the inside, 7 on the outside. Now we have to figure out how many times does 7 go into 4. Well, 7 doesn't go into 4, so we're going to add in that decimal right there. How many times does 7 go into 40? Well, if you know your math facts, that's going to be 5. 7 times 5 will get us 35. That's the closest number we can get to 40 without going over. So when we do our subtraction, and you can show your work if you need to, we're left with 5. We're going to add another invisible 0 on there, and we're going to pull it down. So now we need to know how many times does 7 go into 50. 7 goes into 50 7 times, because 7 times 7 is 49. Let's do our subtraction. We're left with 1. Well, this keeps going, so let's go ahead and add another invisible 1, pull it down, and we're going to put a 0 there. 7 goes into 10. Well, that one's pretty simple. 1 times, 7 times 1 is 7. We still have a 3. Now, you couldn't know this unless you've done it before or you've used a calculator, but this number will go on for a pretty long time. So what we're going to do is generally you'll want to go out 2 decimal places. So we're going to round here. We have 0.5 7, 1. I'm going to underline that 7. Look at the 1. Now we've talked about boss numbers in my class. So 1 is a boss number, but it's a pretty weak boss number. It can't really make the 7 do anything. So it just kind of deflates and turns to 0. So we have 0.57. And then we don't really need the 0, so that can go away. And there you have converting fractions to decimals.